All right, so I'm here with Mio.
Nice to see you, dude.
Hello,
Thanks
nice
for
to see
having
you.
me.
Thank you for being on. Do you mind just to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I live here in Taipei, Taiwan. I've been here for about 4 years. I'm Burmese, born in Burma, Myanmar, but I'm Australian. So I've got an Aussie passport, but born in Burma, and I've traveled around a lot since I was a kid. So I've lived in, gosh, even I've moved from Myanmar. I've lived in Thailand. I've lived in Singapore. I lived in New Zealand. I've lived in multiple parts of Australia. Um, and it's Singapore as well, and spent some time in the Philippines. Did I say that? Yeah, but all over the place. I would say I'm an expat baby. That's probably the best way. Yeah. In my working career, I left Brisbane, Australia, where I did university, and I spent time in Sydney. Then I've worked in Edinburgh. I've worked in London. I've worked in Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, back to Hong Kong, and now I run a consultancy business out of Taipei. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I mean, my family, I've got 4 kids, and they're big, widespread from 21, oh no, shit, 22, 18, 7, and then 4.5, almost 5. But yeah, that's it, and that's pretty much where I spend most of my time.
Do you have a favorite place that you lived?
I like Taipei, actually. I really do. I really like being here. It's a lot of the other places have always been transient for me because it's been a part of the job. I've been asked to move by my company and I've done stuff, but it was always knowing that I have to go somewhere else. But this time, I love being in Taipei. I feel at peace here and I feel quiet here, and it's a challenge for me in some aspects because I don't speak Chinese. It's very hit and miss for me, but it's awesome. I have a real stillness and a quiet, and that's probably how I know I'm in the right place at the right time. And I'm not saying this is the right place forever, but at this moment it is. Yeah, I'm going to say Taipei right now.
What would you say your mission is, or how would you encapsulate your life philosophy?
It's changed. It's really changed depending on which part of my life you catch me in. Okay, and if I really look back, when we moved to Australia as a kid, I'm 12. No, gosh, got to be younger than that. 9, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and then doing primary school and then university. Primary school all the way through to university. It's been to just be accepted, so this philosophy has been to integrate and to be accepted in society, because it was pretty hard. As so many years ago as a kid growing up in Australia, it was very, very hard. There weren't many Asian people that there are now. So the goal back then and the philosophy was to maybe even just disappear from the crowd, disappear, be accepted, be just like everybody else. As I gotten older and I got into my later university years and probably into my working career, the philosophy was to push hard and overachieve and succeed, just like everybody else, but really, really push hard, and just do the best I can, not only for me but for my family, and take that, the earlier years trying to be accepted, but it was more passive, if that makes sense, when I was younger. But as I got older, it was, I'm becoming a man, I'm physically bigger, I'm stronger, I can be more aggressive in my approach to acceptance. And perhaps it's by achieving and driving my career. And then as I look on to more recently, it's to be a better family man, better husband, a better father, um, and to give back, to give back to society, and be it charity work or philanthropy, or even just taking time to sow into people's lives. So the philosophy has changed in that I can add more value, and we can get into that as we talk about it. But your perspective of your own wealth, or excuse me, my own measurement of my own success, and initially it's always things like money and wealth, but as you I guess as you get older and wiser, you start realizing that there's a different yardstick or a different measuring stick for success, right? And as that progresses, then your philosophy changes, and there's an opportunity to give back and sow back into other people's lives, so that people don't have to go through the same things I did growing up.
What are some things you went through that you would not wish people would go through?
There's a bunch of different things. I think if you look at people and let's say new immigrants that move to countries, it's that there's a real hard fight to have to move forward and move forward and move forward, and sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do in order to be move forward, and maybe even if you just break it down to having a career. In your career, you have to make choices sometimes, and you have to accept things sometimes that you don't necessarily want to do. Okay, and I don't know if I can say this. I'm not going to say it, but sometimes in your career, and I did well in my career, but I had to eat shit sometimes. You had to eat shit from people because you just wanted to get ahead and wanted to achieve. And look, I worked in finance for 25 years. It's not like I didn't get paid, but they take their pound of flesh, and you work very, very hard, and you bleed, and the pressure is immense, and it's incredibly difficult on not just myself but my family and my children and all those things. So with my son now, who's 21, who's graduated from finance, I don't necessarily want him to have to go through the same stuff I went through. He doesn't have that desperation in order to break out from cycles. I'm happy because my success allows him to have choice, if that makes sense, to have choice, that he doesn't necessarily have to go do the same things. He can say no. He can do the things that he wants to do, and he can chase the things he really wants to do rather than have to do things just to financially get ahead. Yeah.
Do you have a story of like the biggest shit you had to eat to continue in your career, or to get ahead in your career?
Yeah, I do. The biggest shit. So I told you I got 4 kids, but I was the first 2 kids are from my first wife. So I've been married again. So the biggest shit is that look, I landed in Hong Kong at the age of 28 years old, and I ran a division for an investment bank. And in that division, as I landed, I'm 28 years old. I'm first year VP at an investment bank. And they sit there and they say, don't mess this up, right? And let me give you the amount of pressure that I'm talking about is that you land on the ground, your wife is pregnant, you have to sit an exam. And, they'll give you a perspective. The rents in Hong Kong are so expensive. My rent is about $140,000 US a year. Okay. The break even in Hong Kong is about $250,000 to break even as a family of 4. Okay. US dollars. So you land on the ground and you're trying to drive ahead, and your wife is pregnant. Your visa is sponsored by your company. Okay. Her hospital is paid for by the company. My apartment is paid for by my company. Okay. My job, everything else is based on success. Okay. And the first step is I've got to pass my regulatory exams. Okay. And this is while my wife is pregnant. I've already got 1 kid who's only 2 years old, and I got another one coming. Okay. So you get there and you're building a business. And sometimes as young men, and I didn't have a dad growing up that was active in my life. So sometimes you lack wisdom. You have lots of knowledge, lots of drive, lots of energy. But sometimes what we lack as young people is wisdom. And so what happens is you push. You think, what am I going to do? You push and push and push. If I get ahead financially, I can provide for my family. I can secure my security. I can secure things forward. And you're going forward on the wrong premise, right? And so what happens is the biggest shit you got to eat is that you sacrifice your family to get ahead. And over time, you may lose your family. So the biggest loss is that being separated from my 2 younger kids and going through a divorce, which is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And bearing in mind, my ex-wife and I were together 10 years. So it's like a boxer standing in the ring one day, turning around, and that person that's been in your corner for 10 years is no longer there. Okay. And you push and you drive and you push and you drive, but sometimes there's no one to share your success with. Right. And so that's incredibly, incredibly difficult because you just don't have the wisdom to execute. Now, in hindsight, as I, so many more years down the track, I know I don't have to operate like that. but you don't know that until you have to go through it. So, like I said, part of the goal, is to mentor young people and say to them, there's a different way to succeed. There's different ways to do things, and there's different things that are more important than just what you think it is. You don't have to be so short term in measuring success. But that's and there's a multitude of different things, but that's one of the biggest challenges.
So knowing what you know now, if you were to be put back in that situation where you were 28 and you still have your pregnant wife, your company pays for everything, so they've got you on a leash, and they're still telling you and pressuring you, how would you do things differently if you were still in that situation?
It's not that simple, right? It's not. And I gave you a one-dimensional problem, but let me put it this way. Well, it's like if we just change the perspective slightly, right? In all of us, as we look back, we've had broken friendships, broken relationships, difficult moments, arguments with people, and friction here and there. Okay, and if you look back honestly, and you look back and you go, what's the one thing in common with all those different situations? Okay, the one thing in common was me. Okay, I was always the problem. I always had a 50% at least responsibility in broken relationships or broken friendships. And I'm not saying I have lots and lots of those. I'm saying that you have to take an honest look and you have to clean your side of the street first. And the one thing you have to do is find value in yourself before you can actually go. Because if you don't know your true value, then you're always looking for your value from external sources, whether how much money you make, how many cars you got, and how many women are chasing after you, whatever it may be. But it's because of insecurity that causes those things, right? And if I look back and take an honest look at myself, okay, let me give you an example. By the time I was 28, I was VP. By probably 32, I was a director of an investment bank. And by 35 or so, I was managing director. And the division that I was responsible for, I ran all the client relationships for a particular division. And that division made about 300 to 350 million US dollars a year. Okay. It cranked. We printed money. Okay. And I got to a very, very senior position in the investment bank in the financial world. But there was a ceiling. And the ceiling, if I look back, was me. Okay. It was always my inability to move forward through the ceiling. And it wasn't a lack of skill. It wasn't a lack of drive. It wasn't, ambition. It wasn't energy. It wasn't working hard. Okay. Because I was doing thousands of kilometers on a plane. I was working long, long hours. Nobody out hustled me. Nobody outworked me. Okay. But I couldn't go further. And I'm going to tell you, it comes down to character. Okay. It comes down to the strength of your character. Now, if you take it back to what I said to you was a little Asian kid trying to get accepted into a predominantly white country in Australia. And I when I say that, I grew up in Brisbane, in Queensland. I went to country boys boarding school, predominantly white people. There's probably only 2 or 3 Asian kids in the whole of the boarding school. Okay, so it was a different time to what it is now. What happens is in order to get accepted, what you do is you wear different masks at different times, and you morph your character to be accepted by people. Okay, you try and fit it like a chameleon. You try and fit into situations so that people will accept you, and you just kind of disappear into the crowd. You don't want to stand out because that attracts attention. Maybe most of the time, unwanted attention. And so you learn how to morph and change your personality based on who you're around. Now, as you grow older, you take those same skill sets and you take them into your teenage life and then to your adulthood. But what happens is I was a salesman and I ran client relationships. So as a salesman, it's actually a pretty good skill because they always tell you to mirror the behavior of your clients, mimic them, match them. And so if you can morph your character, it's so easy to do that. So you're liked by everyone. You're liked by this group, that group, this group, that group, and everybody starts liking you and they want to do business with you. But along the way, what happens is you lose part of your own identity and you start forgetting who you really are. Okay. And so what happens is you get to a certain point and you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what's up and what's down. And everything starts blending together. And so, the advice is to find that foundation first, because it's like a house that doesn't have a proper foundation. It's when the storms come, it gets shaken. Okay, and the idea is, yeah, I mean, the advice is, it's an interesting question. The advice I give my younger self, but maybe it's to give myself a break. Like, I wish, I wish I had mentors and more active parents who would feed into me and tell me things were going to be okay. Maybe it was me that didn't listen, and young people don't want to listen to an old person. What do they know, right? But maybe I should have listened more to people as they were talking to me and explaining this kind of stuff. Maybe I could have slowed down a little bit. But look, this is not a sad story. I thoroughly enjoyed my life. I pushed hard. I traveled all around the world, partied all over the world, lived all over the world, ate at the best restaurants, flew business class. I did lots of really, really cool things. I wish I was kinder to myself, that I didn't feel the pressure and take on so much pressure. And like I said today, I don't push that same pressure onto my children. I don't need to push that pressure onto them. I want them to do the thing that they want to do, and I want to support them in the direction that they want to go. My second son, he hates studying. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He wanted to join the armed forces and be an infantry soldier, right? Completely not what I wanted to do. Thought, but I have to support him. Okay, I have to support him because I love him, right? And that's where it comes down to, is that people measure a value of someone by the things they do and the performance that they have. And today, my measurement changes, because the value of someone is not what they do, but who they are. Okay. So if you take my son as an example, okay, let's take the 4-year-old. That's easy. He's never achieved a single thing. He can speak and just read now, but he doesn't have to do any more. He can never be loved more by me, because my love for him is not based on what he's achieved or what he's done. It's based on who he is. Okay, we're not human doings, we're called human beings. And so the idea is that as my measuring stick changes, because my sons and my daughter are loved because of who they are. They're legitimate children. They're loved by me. Full stop. It's not what they do or don't do. And so part of my challenge when I was growing up was not really liking myself, because I faced so much discrimination and rejection as a little kid. Okay, not having a father growing up, moving from country to country. I went to 6 primary schools, all that kind of stuff. We can all sit there and have, sad stories. But the idea is to grow through it and to evolve through it. And so that you can, and put it this way, once you cross to the other side, you've got to also help other people cross that same, to the same side. And so spending time with young people. And that's why I'm delighted to be on this podcast, is the ability to sow into other people's lives and tell them this is not another way. Right, too many young guys get into too much pressure. They jump off buildings, and there's people. The pressure is so much on people to succeed and to be accepted that sometimes people end their own lives. And my goal is for the people not to do that, and to see that there's another way out. And I can keep talking, Willis, so you can stop me and ask questions.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it was important for me to tell people that there was another way. And we need to bring different dimensions into this, right? Because it's all very well, we're talking about a physical dimension, and what I'm saying is, you're being fit and strong and healthy. You're talking about mental, where you're like bright, you studied, but it's also important to bring a spiritual dimension into things. Okay, like I'm Christian, and finding. And I'm not religious by any means. That's not what I mean by Christianity, because Christianity is not a religion. It is a definition of religion, but it's not a do's and don'ts. Do this, do that, don't do that. Christianity is about a relationship. And when you establish that relationship, and you find a relationship, in my case with my God, then what that allows me to do, and accept that love that he has for me, that then allows me to like myself and love myself. And then it allows me to operate differently in the world and love other people. Okay, to let things roll and be kind to people and be generous to people and to give of my time, because my perspective has changed. Okay, because when you see, sometimes we meet people that are hyper aggressive, right? They're really angry and aggressive. It's because sometimes they're frightened, sometimes they're scared, sometimes they've had a huge amount of rejection. Okay, and the moment you transfer love and acceptance to someone like that, the behaviors change because the change is from the inside out. Okay, and the idea is to pass that on and to tell people the truth, that their worth is not in what they do. That's a real mistake. Okay, the measurement is wrong. And look, and I've said this to people before, but you can turn and go, you can say that because you've gone through life, you've got money, you've got assets. It's easy for you to say that. And I accept that, but along the process, you can still have a different measuring stick, and you can still make different decisions. You don't have to react when you're pushed, right? Because it's like a chained dog that's being beaten is very, very aggressive, but a dog that's been loved and cared for is just cuddles and is gentle. And we've seen this in real life, because I ran when I lived in Hong Kong. I was part of a church, and I ran a men's ministry. And what we did, and there's all these different guys in the men's ministry. There were drug addicts and alcoholics. Some of them were drug dealers. Some of them are, where the pornography was an issue, or gambling was an issue. There was all different manifestations of behavior that happened because of the hole in the soul. They had the same hole. They lacked worth, and so had different manifestations and different behaviors. And this is quite interesting, in that in the 20 or so guys that were there, the one thing they all had in common, or we all had in common, was a broken relationship with a father figure. Either the father didn't exist, or the father was abusive, or the father that was there physically present wasn't emotionally present or mentally present. And so all these guys had broken relationships with their father. And so this group was not about behavior modification, because the first time you meet someone and you say, hey, you meet a gambler and you go, don't gamble, they know. You say to an alcoholic, don't drink, they know already. Okay, it's not about behavior modification. But what happens is, the moment you put your arm around someone, you give them a hug, and you sow into them, and you invest time into them, and you give them a part of your life, then that love and that friendship actually transforms them from the inside out. Because if someone says to you, hey, I care for you, I love for you, you're valuable, then the last thing you want to do is hurt that other person, if that makes sense. And so when you start sowing into other people, then you see that transformation back outwards. And so that's always been the value. That's always been the transfer, is to sow into other people's lives. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'm bloody human at the end of the day. And if you push me, sometimes I'm going to push you back. It doesn't mean being just an easy pushover. Okay. What it means is that when you love yourself, you're able to draw boundaries. Okay, you're able to draw boundaries, and that other people can't treat you badly, because you now know you have value. Okay. And so if I look at my daughter, she has to know that her father loves her. Like every 2 weeks, we do date night, and it's just my 7-year-old daughter and I. We do date night together, because I'm adamant that no one will ever love her more than I do. Okay, so when she grows up, she's not going to be seeking and looking for love from guys. I'm going to remove that from the table, because her father loves her, and if I can do that, then that's half the battle. I don't have to tell her to do this, don't do this, don't go there. She'll already know, Willis, right? Because she'll already be able to make those discerning decisions. But she'll already have wisdom, because she knows she's of value. If I teach her self-value, then that takes away that need for fulfillment from external sources. I've gone around in circles and wafted a little bit, but that's a long answer to say, I wish that someone had sown into me and told me my own value. Okay.
Have you ever struggled with
any addictions or like self-sabotaging behaviors?
Yeah, like that's always been there's always been times when, you know, it's, and part of that investment banking lifestyle is alcohol and drugs and partying and, you know, women. If you think the things that solve, you know, if you're a scared little boy who wants to be a man, and you sit there and have a wrong definition of what a man is, the wrong definition is a man is someone who's got heaps of money, he's successful, okay, he's got plenty of money, plenty of cars, plenty of houses, and hot women chasing him around. Okay, and most people, people that listen to this, they go, "Yeah, that's a great definition. That's the definition." Well, it's not. It's not. A man is someone that can actually stand up for his family, that can, you know, have integrity, and, you know, love his children and love his wife and turn up and come home every night. But it takes a long time to work that out. And if you don't have the right role models, how do you know that's the right definition, right? And so again, that's really, really important to be able to change young people's lives and set examples. And, you know, here's the thing, Willis, you and I met doing jiu-jitsu. I think that's amazing. Like, jiu-jitsu is just this metaphor for life, because it's about this consistent pathway. And I'm not saying, hey, let's all be spiritual and healthy. And there's all that physical aspect about it, but it's that mental drive. See, the thing that we have in common, and you and I have nothing in common right now, okay, except we're on this call, but we know each other from jiu-jitsu, and we have a commonality in that people that go to jiu-jitsu, especially, or even martial arts, they're people that want to be better than they were yesterday, right? They're working towards developing themselves. And we know, you and I know, that jiu-jitsu is not just physical, it's mental. It's the ability to build a fortitude and a drive when someone's trying to actually choke you or break your arm, for you to sit there and go, no, I'm gonna beat this. It's for me against adversity to try and win, right? And to build that character. And that's what we have in common, right? And so and that's why I love going there, and I love meeting people from there, because whatever's going on in the world, we know that we have that in common. There's a desire. So the Mio that leaves the gym that day is better than the Mio that turned up that morning. Right? I know that already. The competition's against me, and I know I'm really going to leave better. And as I keep doing that again and again and again and again, I have consistency. And over that repetitive consistency and that determination to be consistent, okay, and some days I'll go back 2 steps, I'll go up forward 1 step, but that consistency over time develops character. And we started at the beginning, I was talking about my character, and that consistency of I'm valuable, the consistency of I can do this, and I can do this in the right way, and I can make the right decision, creates my character. And that character is what I carry through to the other side. It's the only thing I'll take with me to the other side, right? Because money and clothes and cars and nothing else will come with me. But that ability, for me, that's really important now.
Outside of jiu-jitsu, what other practices or tools do you have that helps you build your character or maintain your character?
Yeah, I set my day. I think this is very, very important. I sell into myself first, because you can't give someone else what you don't have. Okay. And if I'm going to be the leader, and let's just say I'm going to lead in business, I'm going to lead my clients, because I'm a consultant, so I've got to lead my clients. I've got to lead my family, I've got to lead my marriage, my wife, my children. Okay. If I've got to do those things and I've got great responsibilities, then it's important that I sow into myself first. So the first and foremost, before I do anything else, I'll sow into myself. I'll find peace and I'll find quiet, because in the world, you're bombarded by too much stuff. There's too much noise coming in, right? There's this news and this influence and that. Like, here's the thing, is I want people to like me today, but if they don't, I'm fine with that. That's not, I accept that. You can have a differing opinion, because I like me, and that's important. And when I like myself, I have the right character, and I'll make the right decisions, not just for myself, but for my family and for other people as well. So to answer your question, it's important every day that you sow into yourself. You find that quiet time before the day starts, before you're bombarded. Switch your phones off. There's no good that comes from that, right? And I'm really adamant about this. I get to bed at 10:30 at night. Like, after 10:30, no good, because when you're in a state of overtiredness and you become susceptible to negative thoughts and emotions and stuff, and I don't have the luxury of having a pity party. I've got too much to achieve in my life and too many things that I want to do. So part of my daily routine is I want to set tomorrow up for success. So I go to sleep on time. That's the most important thing. I sleep. When I sleep, when I go into rest, I give myself a chance to wake up the next day and I set my day. Before I start anything else, I'll set my day mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And you can call it meditation, whatever it is. But for me, I'll read the Bible. I'll pray in the morning. Okay, but I'll set my day. And some days I may have to reset my day through the day because there's so much pressure, and there could be elderly parents, there could be disagreements with someone, there could be legal issues, there could be financial issues. That's okay. You need to just reset those things, because we all learnt this during COVID, right? The fear of the thing was actually worse than the thing itself. Okay, and the fear of something may restrict you from doing something that you should do. And if you can sow into yourself and believe into yourself, get up and get going, then you've got a greater chance of success, right? But I don't have the luxury, and as a man, I don't have the luxury to feel sorry for myself. That's something that I can't afford. You can be down for a day and down for a moment, but you cannot. I cannot go on and on and on and on with that. And again, bring jiu-jitsu back in. Some days I don't feel like going. Sometimes I've got pain all over my body, aching. I don't want to spar with that guy. He's crazy. I don't want to. I'll still do it. I'll still do it because I know it'll transform me. I have to go through it, right? It's a process. And so for me, part of the routine every day is to find that time that's quiet, where it's just for me, and I sow into me. It could be 30 minutes, it could be 60 minutes, but it's really important to sow into yourself. And I have I don't waste time. I have timers on my phone. I don't have any social media on my phone. Zero. Okay, zero. I've deleted all my accounts. It's a waste of my time. I could care less what other people's opinions are, right? I'm not interested. And the only thing I have is LinkedIn. Okay, and I look at it sporadically when I need to find someone. Okay, but I don't care what their opinions are, because most of the stuff you cannot trust anyway. Like even news, right? The world goes left and right and up and down, And if you take politics as an example, America loves. Just let's say 6 months ago, America loves Ukraine. Let's give them some missiles to go and bomb Moscow. Let's support them. Let's forgive aid. All this sort of stuff. Okay, Ukraine's awesome. We have Donald Trump in power. America does not like Ukraine. They said he's a dictator who hasn't had. Sorry, Zelensky's a dictator. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with either of this. Okay, I'm just saying what they said in the press. That now they don't even include Ukraine in the peace talks. They're going straight to Russia. So in the world's left, right, and wrong turns on a dime. And if you're just listening to other people's opinion, then you're just a cork going up and down in the ocean, right? There's no steady. You've got to find time and settle yourself so that you can lead. And that's really, really important. In my case, I think, okay, if you look at processes, it's important to break bad cycles, okay? And as humans, like I said to you, like if I look at myself, I'm always the weakest link, right? I'm limited by my own mental, the things I've experienced in life, my relationships, my business contacts, the things that I've done in my past. Like I'm limited by my own experiences, okay, my own education, whatever it is. But if you can bring a power greater than yourself into a problem, then there's an opportunity to solve those things and to find peace in those moments, right? And so for me, again, it's to find that peace and defer to a power greater than myself, so I can sit there and I can punch through my day and know that I have hope and I will get through to the other side. Okay, and that sounds really wacky and spiritual, but I'm not like an everyday person. I have aspirations. Like, I want to go higher and higher. I don't want a day job. I'm not interested in that. I want to go change people's lives. Okay. I'm from Myanmar. I'm Burmese. I want to go change my country. Okay. I have aspirations to go do those things. And I can tell you, right, you take up any really high level, you take up anyone who's excellent at something, they apply themselves and they're single-mindedly focused on succeeding. And part of that success comes from sowing into yourself first, getting yourself mentally strong, physically strong, emotionally strong. Okay. And if you can do that, then you get a high chance of success. Right. And that's really important to me. I'm going to give myself every chance to succeed. Whether I get there or not, I've got to go through a process, but I'm going to give myself every chance. So, that's a really, really important part, because I could tell you lots of people go, well, let me go study this, let me go do another degree, and let me go do that. Yeah, but I've seen plenty of PhDs and MBAs, and I worked in the top investment bank, right? And you have some difficult times in your life. We all know storms of life will come. But if you don't have the emotional and spiritual foundation, all your education will not save you. Your physical strength won't save you because you'll fold. So, it's important to sow into yourself and build those other pillars for those difficult moments in life, right? Does that kind of answer your question, or is that?
Absolutely, absolutely. What aspirations do you have in terms of changing Burma or improving Burma?
Well, my country doesn't even have stable electricity. Okay, it doesn't have stable electricity. So the first thing is that the country needs electricity. It needs stable electricity in order to even cook and clean and have lights on. Every day, people need access to things like unbiased internet, news services, right? And education is always important. And things like, this is going to sound simple, but things like bank accounts. One of the ways you break poverty cycle is that people can save, because if you can't save, you spend everything. So things like nowadays, and most of you guys, your listeners probably know this, is that if you have a mobile phone, you can effectively have a wallet, and you can actually hold cash in it, and you can have electronic banking and things like that. And that's a wonderful way. So the part of it is to go in and start changing those aspects of it. Over time, it's there's how long does this podcast have? There's many things that you want to do, but because my family, I'll take it another way. My family are pastors. My mum's side are pastors and ministers and missionaries, and they manage things like orphanages, and they manage churches, and they go bless people. And immediately the idea is to go generate income, so I can go alleviate poverty and help people directly. Okay. We had during COVID, my wife and I had a charity, and we were raising money, and we did really well. We fed hundreds and hundreds of families. Okay, like just all over, even people up the Rohingya and stuff that were up on the edges. But we went out and we sowed into many people, and we just kept feeding families and buying sacks of rice and stuff like that. Okay, because many of the international charities into Myanmar, they're restricted by COVID regulations, and they can't go in different parts of the country. But if you're Burmese and you already have a network, then I'm able to distribute my aid and make it more effectively. So we want to do that. But aspirations are over time. You've got to look at things like proper corporate governance, proper legal system, okay, a stable currency. Those kind of things are all important. And now my background is finance. And if I ever get a chance to go back in that country, I'll go do things like build a stock exchange, set it up. They've only got 5 stocks on the stock exchange. But the ability to go do that, bring, and things like the rule of law is very important, because if you have a confidence in the rule of law, you need the legal system, what's right, what's wrong, what's agreed, then you can trust the contracts, okay, of that you sign in the country. You have recourse. You need a stable currency, so that there's value that's not eroded away. And then things like corporate governance, controlling that process, things like auditing. And I was talking to someone the other day, and he was like saying this company in Myanmar has got 3 sets of books. One he shows the government, one he shows investors offshore, and one that's real. So the company was keeping 3 sets of books. Well, you got to stop that, because that's stopping investment into the country, right? It's not an easy solution, but to be able to go do that. And I'm not for the government. I'm not against the government. I'm neutral about a political view, and I'm for the people, right? So I have a view that I want to go help my people. And so it's not a straightforward answer, but the idea is to go back in and go make changes. And I'll do it at any level. I'll do it at just feeding one person at a time, if I can, all the way through to if I ever got the opportunity to go and change things in society, I'll do it.
What's your favorite Bible verse and why?
There's but let me give you, rather than a verse, let me give you a passage of it. And I was talking to my son about this just today, actually. And It's Psalm 34, and it's written by King David. You can Google this if you like, and basically it's a psalm of praise. Okay, and the thing about it is David is the only man in the Bible that's described as a man having a heart after God's own heart. So he's in alignment. He meaning that he's already aligned with the things that God has, like the nature and the desires for his life. And the history about David is David's not particularly a good man. Like, he was a warrior. He had blood on his hands because he went into battle and he killed people, right? But along the way, he actually had made real mistakes in his life. He murdered a man. He had an affair with this man's wife, and he had really broken desires. But one thing David knew was about the love of God for him. And what happens in this passage, David is recorded as the guy that kills Goliath. I think most people, even if you're non-Christians, that David, the young man, fights Goliath, and he beats that battle. So he's absolutely at the highest point in his life, because by beating Goliath, what happens is he saves his Israelite nation from the Philistines. Okay, because the agreement was whoever wins that fight one-on-one, the other army, gives into them. And so David wins this fight. And so the whole Israelite nation have been saved from slavery, effectively, And so he is celebrated by his whole country. But in that moment, King Saul, who was the one that actually sent him out into battle, hates him because he's now more loved than the king is himself. And so King starts chasing him to try and kill him. And now David is scared, and he goes from being the greatest warrior, the greatest highest point in his life, to the most scared, darkest point, and he's hiding in a cave. And he's actually writes the psalm while he's hiding in a cave. And he actually probably sings the psalm because he was a musician and a worshiper. And he writes it, and it says, and he starts praising God in his lowest moment, right? And he starts praising God, and what he starts saying is that I'm going to turn my attention from my situation to my God, because I believe my God is going to, solve my problems, that God's going to deliver me. He's going to be faithful, and he's going to see me through, because God made me a promise and he's going to deliver me. And so that's one of the greatest passages. And it's a real lesson for life, because anytime David speaks, it's important that we listen, because what happens, right? We have social media that says, oh, that person's more handsome than me. He's more successful than me. You have all these businessmen that are making lots of money. You have people that are more beautiful than you. And so the world keeps putting you down and says, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not going to get ahead in life. Right. And so, and there's many, many problems. And maybe you're sick. Maybe you've got illness, or maybe your loved ones are sick or whatever. And the world comes after you. But what happens is, in your deepest, darkest moments, what you need to do is start turning away from the problem and start turning towards the solution. And in David's case, he was turning towards his God and saying, God, you're my solution. All I have to do is keep believing you, keep following you, keep praising you, and my moment is going to change. Right? So he's taking charge of his emotions, he's taking charge of his thought process, and he's coming into alignment with what God is saying. And that's how he comes out of it and comes in to succeed. And what happens is David goes from being in this cave, and over time, he goes to the king of Israel, and he becomes king over all the Israelite nation. Right? And so his generation after generation sits on the throne of Israel. So David, even and there's no distinguishing between Christians and Jews. They all believe in David, right? Because that's part of Jewish history and Jewish the Torah as well. Yeah, but that probably is. But there's a bunch of different stuff, right? So I went to I went to Bible theology school. So I've done that as well. I'm part of a church here in Taipei. I was a part of a church in Hong Kong. And from time to time, I get the opportunity to get up and preach, actually. And so getting up on this podcast is not dissimilar to me getting up and preaching. I have a real desire to influence people and change their lives. And the first thing and the last thing I always tell people is that they're loved and they're valuable, right? And in a Christian context, they're loved by God, because that's the moment everything changes. Okay, certainly for me, the first time I realized that I was loved and I was valuable, everything stopped. The world stopped spinning. That changes, because you're never quite sure, right? And when you have that epiphany, when you have that realization, and that's really, really important. Yeah.
So you had a little bit of change of topic, but you had mentioned like every 2 weeks kind of doing a little date night with your daughter to kind of make sure she feels loved and all that. Is there a habit or that you have with your wife in terms of something you do to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, we do date night every week. In fact, we do date night twice a week. Yeah, we do. It's always, yeah, that's really important. Really important. And look, my wife and I now, we've been together 17 years. Right? We're doing something right. And that's not to say it's easy and everything goes well, but that's the key thing. Okay. Like, and if there's young men listening on here, like there's nothing more important than your family and your wife. I promise you that. When times are difficult, what I need is my wife to encourage me. Because my wife and I, we were running a business together quite recently. She's just doing something else right now. But we have alignment, because we have alignment in our financial, we have alignment in our family, we have alignment in our marriage. And so I can always trust my wife because we're aligned. And it's so important to sow into that marriage. Okay. It's not something that you do secondary to your job or secondary to your career. There's literally nothing more important, because I can handle all different problems in this world as long as my wife is standing beside me. Okay, if she's supporting me, she's encouraging me, let's get up and go. Because quite often as men, I don't need my wife to fight my battles for me. When I'm down and I'm feeling slightly off center, for her to encourage me, push me forward, so you can do this, let's go. In that moment, I'm able to get back up and I'm able to win the battle for my family, right? So that's one of the single most important things that I would tell young people today, is that when you get married, sow into your marriage, sow into it, because that's the greatest return on investment you'll ever get, right? And I know there's two people in that marriage, but I'm going to say most of the time the problem are the men. most of the time. But man, my wife is my greatest support. Every time I speak, she's front row center, smiling at me, nodding, supporting me. Every time I go to a jiu-jitsu competition, my wife is there, right? Every time I have a big moment, she's there. And even my home, as a man, I'd probably be living out of 3 suitcases, and have a TV and a desk and a laptop, right? That's all I have. But with my wife, I have a home. I have a home that's beautiful. I have paintings and pictures and all sorts of stuff, right? And that's really, really important, is that you sow into that. And it's too easy today for people to have dinner and be looking at their phones and go to restaurants. I see it all the time. Man, I never bring my phone. I wouldn't even dare put it on the table, because like it's too important. Like you don't have to give hours and hours of time, but the time you give better be of quality. And so when I invest it, I get it back in multiples. Like, she's the only person I can confide in. She's the only person that knows me, knows my worst secrets to my best. No, I'm sorry, I don't mean secrets. Like, you see me at my worst and see me at my best, right? And she's the difference. If I'm arguing with her, I can't get through my day. But if she's on my side, I can do anything, right? So it's a long answer again, but that's really, really important. And we have plenty of times where we don't talk for a couple of days because we have a disagreement, but we're getting better and better and better at solving problems and solving our differences, right? And so it's like a perfect marriage it's an impossibility, but we've just made a decision that we're going to move forward no matter what, and we're going to get through it. So it's just easier to forgive each other, right? And most of the time it's me, dude. So
So kind of, I'm not sure how to ask this question, but like when you were 28 and with your first wife, you acknowledged that there were a lot of things you could have done better or done different. So
yeah,
if you had done things differently and kind of been kinder to yourself and spent more time with your wife, like, would that marriage, do you think, have like maintained? And in that case, like, you would not have.
There's definitely a chance of that. Like, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I could have definitely done things better. Look, so both of us both of us came together, and I don't want to speak of her. That's not that's not right as well. But I will say that both of us had dysfunctional backgrounds, okay, from family situations and the broken stuff. And we got together, and in my case, speaking just for myself, it was an opportunity to leave my family and start my own family and go live my life, because all I ever wanted was a loving family. But this is what I said at the beginning, is that if we don't go fix ourselves first and get things right, then all you do is carry the bad traits or the bad mistakes. Not even traits. You were too young to have those, but bad thought processes into a relationship, and you can't do that, right? Like if you can just go from relationship to relationship to relationship, but if you never deal with yourself first and get honest with yourself that you're part of the problem and deal with yourself, then you just break the next one and break the next one, break the next one. But you need to take a good look at yourself, because quite often it's you or me. You know what I'm saying? So, so the me now going back then, yeah, it could have been completely different. It could have been much different, and I could have saved, my older kids some hurt. I could have saved her some hurt, and I could have saved me some hurt. But yet I can't put that weight on myself, because it's not all my responsibility. There's also two of us to tango, if that makes sense. And we just put it this way: if you don't quite get married for the right reasons in the first place, which is, then we drifted apart. We went off in different directions, because we moved so many times. Like we probably moved to about 5 or 6 different countries, and she just had enough, which is understandable.
Okay. And then, sorry.
No, that's it.
Okay. Is there a specific moment that you felt most loved or supported by your current wife?
Oh man, it's every day. Like it's not a moment. It's think of it as like a beaker, right? And she's just filling it up each day. She's not taking from it. It's just filling it up and filling it up and filling it up. And as we progress in our relationship, the volume of that affection and that support and that love, the weight of that just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper and broader and broader and broader, right? So every day it's building on itself. There's not a moment where she goes, "Oh, she did that, I didn't do that." There's been lots of times, she's forgiven me when I'm an idiot. Now, there's plenty of those times, but we forgive each other, right? It's that overwhelming support that she's on my side, and I can look back and know she's going to be standing there. That's it. That's it. And it sounds really simple. It's not a grand gesture, but that thing is probably the single hardest thing to do, is to be consistent and love me, right? And just turn up. But that's what it is. I mean, you can sit there and go, she gave me children, she does this or she does that. That's not what it comes down to. Is that it's that we've decided to go all the way through and finish our lives together, right? And that's something really, really incredibly valuable. Yeah.
If you could only gift one book for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
I answered that question already, didn't I?
The Bible.
I'll give you the Bible.
Yeah,
man, it's changed my life, because it's not. The Bible is a love story. Okay. No, so let me say it another way. It's a love letter. Okay. If I were to leave my sons, and let's say we're back in the times when there was no jet aircraft and there wasn't steam power, there was sailing ships, right? And we were leaving our family, and I had to leave my son. And let's say he was only, I don't know, 18 years old, and I had to leave him, and I was going to cross from America to England or whatever it was, right? Or the other way. What would I do? I'd write him a letter. And I'd start the letter with, "Son, I love you. This is who you are." I'd end the letter with, "Son, I love you. You're valuable to me. Keep going." And somewhere in the middle, I'd be telling him how valuable he was to me all through the letter. Okay. At the beginning, I would tell him who he is, who his family are, what his heritage is, where he's come from. Okay. And I would give him some guidance how to live his life through the book. But at the beginning, in the middle, and the end, I would tell him how much he was valuable to me. Okay. That he is legitimate, he is loved by me, and he's valued by me. That's why that book is so important. And it evolves. It's not like a normal book where you read it. It actually speaks into moments of your life. There's such incredible wisdom. You can read the same thing again and again, and one day it just pops and you realize it because there's a connection. It's not, it's, you know, and I really believe God is real. If God is real and he can really talk through, then he's able to talk through that book, right? And the words come to life. Yeah, that's the book, dude.
Got it. So there's a tradition here where I have the last guest leave a question for the next one, not knowing who the next guest will be. So the last guest asked, if you had unlimited resources, what would you do? You probably already answered this as well, but
I'd change the world. I'd change the world. See, the money is not bad. The love of money is bad. And I'd give it away. I'd give it away. I'd give it away. And I'd spend my time taking my kids with me. And we would travel around the world going and giving money away and changing people's lives. I'd give it away. Right. And I would transform lives. And I don't mean give away stupid money. I would go help people and educate people. And I would alleviate poverty and I would break cycles. That's what I would do with that money. Right.
All right. And then what question would you like to leave for the next guest?
If you were a song, what would and why?
If you were a
song.
A song?
Yeah, S-O-N-G. If you were a song, what is the song and why?
And would you like to answer that question? Maybe you have already.
Let me tell you why I asked that question.
Yeah.
So it was always my favorite interview question because we would bring in these incredible graduates who had come from Ivy League universities who were incredibly smart, prepped, talented. And remember, I wasn't working in a part of the bank that required pure quantitative mathematics or derivative understanding. I had salesmen and relationship people, and I wanted character and dynamism. And it was a question I asked to see if they had a character, because it was a question that they couldn't prepare for. And so that was the question I always asked. And I didn't really want an answer. I didn't care what the answer was. I just wanted to see if they could think on their feet and come up with something that made sense. And it didn't really matter. It could be a song because that's what reminded me of home. It could be a song because that's my favorite karaoke song. Like that's the only one. And so, it could be because I can't sing to save my life. And I know having lived in Japan, you always have to go to karaoke. And as the boss, I've always got to sing a song. But I would sing so bad that they would never let me sing for the rest of the night. And I could just get on with laughing and having a drink. And so my song was Barry Manilow. I write the songs. You can go look that up.
What is it?
It's Barry Manilow. I write the songs.
I write the songs?
Yeah. And the song goes like this. I write the songs that make the whole world sing. And I write the songs of lovely things. And there's a part of it goes, I write the songs that make the young girls cry. I write the songs. I write the songs. He can't sing for shit. Neither can I. So it was the only thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the question. And email me the answer of the next guest.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah.
Who comes to mind that you think would be a good fit for this podcast?
I think people who are on a journey, like who are honest about their journey, right? Who are honest about a situation and understand that they need development, right? And that not as a development as a weakness, but the development as a positivity, because they know that if they change and they evolve, they just get better and they get better, right? And so, what I introduced you to Jen. I think she'd be great. She'd bring a different perspective. She's someone that certainly wants to move forward. And that's what Jen and I have in common, is that we want to be better than we were, yesterday. And I love her to death. I think she's awesome. But she's got that desire. Maybe she comes from a different perspective, but she's incredibly driven as an athlete, right? She's incredibly driven in business, and she's always looking for that, that peace as well. So yeah, maybe Jen. There you go.
For this, she is great. It's just that for this podcast, I'm only interviewing men. So, is there a man that comes to mind?
Yeah. How about you go interview? Did English or Cantonese?
English.
Oh, excuse me, Mandarin. English. There's the pastor. His name is Pastor Matt Sai, and he's just founded a brand new church called Presence Church. You can find it, Presence, and they're in Nahu. Yeah, and I'll ask him for you if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll get him, because that church, within 6 weeks or something like that, maybe 8 weeks. It's 180 people, and it's just full of young people.
Nice.
And he is transforming people's lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would love to
If you're
see-
serious, I'll ask you.
Yeah, yeah. Spread the gospel.
Yeah. It's and that sounds really religious and stuff like that. But if I sit there and say to someone, hey, listen, you don't have to be the way it can. I'm completely broken and dysfunctional. But I can sit here today as a father and as a man, as I'm going to say this, as a contributor to society, rather than a detractor, a contributor, then so can you, right? And let's start there. And I'm not even measuring that in success and things like that. It's got nothing to do with that. But you can like yourself, and I can like myself, right? And that's a great foundation to be able to go do anything that you want. Yeah.
Is there any final things that you would like to share, promote, or request from the audience?
No, thanks for having me. Look, I appreciate it, and I hope you have me back at some point. And
I would love to have you back. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got a lot going on.
give me some structured stuff, and I'll get up, and I'll plan some things, and we can do stuff like that. Even if your followers or the listeners say, hey, look, we'd love to do that again. We'd love to ask more about this. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Once I build up my audience, make sure to get you back. I want to make sure your time is well.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Willis.
much.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, and I'll
the
see you
pleasure
around
is
the
all
gym.
mine.
Yeah.
The pleasure is all mine.
Cool, dude.